Okay, so in order to determine the sample size that you need to compare growth rates for people who did and did not use veterinary advice when determining their parasite plans, you are going to need to go to OpenEpi.com. When you go to OpenEpi.com, you will see these down the side here, the folders. Depending, you may need to expand that, but you're going to sample size. It's a mean difference. By default, when the pages open, they just open on a standard start page for which you can't enter any information. Okay, so as you can see here, it's just a start page that kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like and what the outcomes will look like. We click on the Enter tab. You enter what confidence interval you want, and in this case 95, which was the same as in the other calculator. You'll leave the power at 80, and we're going to have a 1-for-1 ratio between the two groups. So in other words, 50% will be from one group and 50% from the other. Now, in terms of what you enter here, we do have the option to enter different standard deviations for each group, or you can just enter the same number for both options. So if we were to say that group 1 didn't use a veterinarian and they had a growth rate of 150 grams a day with a standard deviation of 100. In the second group that used a veterinarian, they had 250 and 100. We could go and now calculate those differences, and we can see we need 16 in each group for 32 in total. Now it's important, I'm just going to go back to this. You do have an option of not entering an actual average mean in that, so we can just delete rather than 0, and you can put in a difference. Okay, so if we put in 100 there and calculate, you can see that we again need only 16. So the takeaway from that, just going back to the enter page, is that really it doesn't matter what these values are. What is important is what is the difference between them. So if you don't know what the rates are, but you've got some idea of what difference would be large enough for you to actually think it was worth the investment of using the veterinarian, then you could enter that difference in there if that's what you wanted to do, and you can enter standard deviations. Now, what I sometimes do in these scenarios is, if I thought perhaps that my standard deviation was going to be significantly smaller, then I might run with 50, and I can see it drops it to 8 in total. Or I could say, well, what happens if the standard deviation were 200? What would we need? We would need 63 and 126 in each group. Okay, so hopefully that helps you understand how to step through it. Again, you're going to openepi.com. You're going to be looking for the sample size down here, and you're going to select mean difference. What you need to know going in is what either mean values for both groups or what difference you think is important, and then some estimate on the standard deviation. Now, the reason it took me a while to realize that the results were actually different was that the other sample calculator asks for the variance, not the standard deviation, and the variance is the square of the standard deviation. So what was happening was, the reason the sample sizes were so small was that the variance I'd entered was actually quite low. So if you wanted to use the other calculator, you would get similar numbers to this if you entered a variance of 10,000. Okay, hopefully that helps. Any questions or problems, please let me know.